You've probably heard the name Satoshi Nakamoto, the mysterious creator of Bitcoin. But what if I told you the real story, the one that truly matters, didn't start there at all? Well, today, we're digging into the secret history of Bitcoin, the decades of work by some incredible minds who laid all the groundwork. Welcome to The Explainer.
So, let's ask the big question. Where did Bitcoin really come from? The popular story makes it sound like it just appeared out of thin air in 2008, right? A single stroke of genius. But, the truth is so much more interesting than that.
You see, Bitcoin wasn't an invention in the way we usually think of it. It was more like an assembly. It was the final move in a really long, really difficult game, a quest that took nearly 30 years to create something the world had never, ever seen before.
So let's rewind and start at the very beginning. This whole quest for digital gold started with a simple but huge idea: creating money for the internet. We're talking private, secure, digital cash that doesn't need a bank, doesn't need a government. But dreaming it up was one thing. Actually building it came with some massive, massive roadblocks.
These were the big four, the absolute monsters they had to slay. The biggest one? The double spending problem. If I have a digital coin, what's to stop me from just copying it and spending it over and over? And then there's trust. How do you get two strangers to securely exchange money without a bank acting as the middleman? And how do you do all of that while protecting everyone's privacy? Solving these was going to take a whole new way of thinking.
So, let's meet the first architects of this revolution. These are the geniuses who saw what the future could be and started sketching out the very first blueprints for what would one day become Bitcoin. And what you see here is basically a story of progress through failure. It's fascinating. Back in the late 80s, you had David Chaum's DigiCash. It had amazing privacy, but it still needed a central bank to work, so not quite there. Fast forward a decade, and Wei Dai comes up with B-Money, which imagined a distributed ledger run by the network. Sound familiar? But it was just an idea, a theory. Around that same time, Szabo's BitGold got so close with a kind of proto-blockchain. Each one of these pioneers gave us a crucial piece of the puzzle, but nobody could solve the whole thing.
So the final, crucial piece of this puzzle, it didn't come from the world of digital money, not at all. It came from a totally different battlefield, the war against junk email.
No, I'm not kidding. The massive breakthrough needed to secure a global, decentralized currency was actually hiding in plain sight. It was inside a clever little anti-spam tool called Hashcash, which was created way back in 1997 by a cryptographer named Adam Back. So the core idea behind Hashcash was this brilliant concept called proof of work. And it's simpler than it sounds, really. Just think of it like this. It's a way to prove that you force your computer to do a little bit of work, something that's kind of hard to do, but super easy for anyone else to check and say, yep, you did it.
And here's how it worked for fighting spam. Your computer would solve a tiny little puzzle to create a unique digital stamp. Attaching that stamp to one email costs you almost nothing in terms of processing power. But for a spammer trying to blast out millions of emails, that tiny cost suddenly adds up, and it becomes computationally expensive, making their whole business model fall apart. It was a genius way to attach a real-world cost to a digital action, and that was the missing link.
So, by 2008, all the pieces were finally on the table. You had the blueprints for a distributed ledger, you had these ideas for cryptographic trust, and now you had a way to impose a cost on the system to secure it. The stage was set, and a mysterious figure was about to walk on and finally put the whole puzzle together. And this right here is the absolute most important thing to understand. Satoshi Nakamoto wasn't so much an inventor as they were a master synthesizer. They didn't create brand new ingredients out of thin air. They perfected the recipe, brilliantly weaving together decades of other people's research into one elegant working system. This is the big aha moment. This is the Bitcoin recipe. Satoshi took that distributed ledger idea from Wei Dai and Szabo, then supercharged it with Adam Back's proof-of-work engine. It was built on the foundations of cryptographic trust pioneered by David Chaum, and the whole thing ran on a peer-to-peer network championed by the cypherpunk movement. It was just a masterpiece of combination. So what's the big takeaway here? Why does this hidden history actually matter? Let's just take a look at the whole journey one last time. This timeline really puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? From Chaum's first swing at privacy back in '89, to Adam Back's proof of work in '97, to the amazing theoretical breakthroughs from Dai and Szabo in '98. You can see it was this long, slow burn of ideas,
all leading up to that final spark with Satoshi's white paper in 2008. And understanding this legacy it's essential. Bitcoin isn't magic internet money. It's the result of a long, collaborative, and let's be honest, often frustrating scientific journey. It's a technology that stands on the lessons learned from decades of brilliant failures just as much as its successes.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. The giants of the past, people like Chaum, Dai, Szabo, and Back, they paved the way for Bitcoin. So, who are the giants of today? And what incredible new worlds are they building on the shoulders of Bitcoin? Well, that is the next chapter of this incredible story.